Hi guys, so spring is here and Easter is like right around the corner as well, and I decided that it would be fun to make a little spring dress. The little dress that I'm making is inspired by the Grecian men and women during the 5th and 6th century, and these garments that they would wear are called Doric Chitons. So instead of using linen like they did way back when, I decided to go a little bit more modern and maybe a little bit of Indian on this and use a mesh print. And I also want to announce to you guys that I am so lucky and fortunate enough to be sponsored by Bernina to make this video. It is so funny because my mom and my professors all have Berninas from like the 60s and they never seem to want to break down ever. So once again, I'm just extremely proud to have my name attached to the Bernina name. And yeah, we can go ahead and get started on this little tutorial. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to draft a pattern, and I'm going to be making the pattern using a simple tank top. Okay, so I'm actually going to use dot-to-dot paper. You can use newspaper, you can tape a bunch of regular copy paper together to make a pattern, but this is the easiest for me. I'm also going to be using a black pen. This way you can see what I'm doing. There's going to be about maybe 1/16 of an inch skew on my pattern because of how thick this pen is, but I'm doing it this way so you can see it on camera, otherwise it's kind of difficult to see what I'm doing. First thing that I would do is draw a straight line somewhere on the pattern. It doesn't matter where, but make sure that the line is 100% straight. Okay, so this is going to be my center front line, which is going to be the line that's going right in the center of my body. If you look at the dress, I actually made it so that when these little pieces right here is sitting on the shoulder, this neckline kind of droops a little bit. And the way I did this is, instead of just tracing the pattern, I backed off from the center about a few inches. I'm going to back away from the center front line a little bit. So keep in mind that the more you back away from the center front, the droopier the neckline is going to be. I'm going to pick a spot from the top anywhere, and this is where basically my shoulder line is going to rest on, because that's probably the highest point on my body for this dress. And I'm going to draw a straight line. Now from that straight line, I'm going to go in maybe 4 or 5 inches depending on how droopy you want your neckline to be. So I'm going to draw that line that is about 4 or 5 inches away from the center front. So you have your original center front, and then you have the droopiness center front that we are creating here. And the fact that you're backing off, it kind of gives it this flowy, baggy kind of look afterwards when you put in the elastic. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your tank top, and this is going to be like a very rough sketch. And the great thing about working with knits is that not everything has to be 100% accurate all the time, and you could create patterns so easily with it. So I'm going to fold my tank top in half. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to line up my shoulder seam as closely as possible to this top line that I've already drawn up here. And I'm also going to try to align my fold as closely as I can to this line that was backed off away from the first center front line. Just like that. I'm going to roughly sketch in the tank top. It doesn't have to be as curved as the tank top is. It could be a little bit looser. We are going to put an elastic in, so you don't have to be 100% accurate. For the armhole though, do try to not deviate so much from it, only because you don't want a really big or a very small armhole. Now at the top right here where the shoulder is, I see that my shoulder regularly is about 2 inches wide. I kind of want it to be a little bit thicker, so I'm going to kind of draw it outwards a little bit. Just like that. For the neckline, you have 2 necklines that you have to look at. You have the one where it's in the front, and you kind of have the back neckline. So I'm going to just do half of those 2, which is probably right here. I'm also going to mark where my shoulder starts. So basically, I'm just going to sketch in how I want my neckline to look. And this is where your center front is from your tank top. But since we kind of backed off a little bit to keep that droopiness, I'm going to go all the way to the original center front line. Now originally my tank top only stops right where my bum is, and I kind of want to extend it a little bit longer beyond my tank top. So you can go ahead and extend your center front line And as you can see, I kind of ran out of paper, and you kind of just have to MacGyver yourself through it and add more paper to it. That's basically just how pattern making works, right? And on this side, I'm just going to maybe extend the line a little bit. It's okay if it flares out. Okay, there's one more thing I kind of want to talk about as well. For the top of the shoulder right here, we do want to add in little ties. And to create a little tie, you want to create about a 1/2 inch casing. And for this to happen, you have to have extra fabric, right? The ties are going to look like this on the shoulder, and the casing is being sewn in by using the seam allowance of the shoulder seam. So I'm going to go ahead and add in that extra inch. Just blend it out. See, if you look at the dress, you see that there's this extra layer right here. And so to get this little piece, I honestly just drew in a straight line on my original dress, kind of like what I did here. So I'm going to draw in this line, just like that. And then I'm going to probably assume that my elastic is going to sit somewhere right underneath that little fringe. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go in and add seam allowances. You don't have to add seam allowances up here because you already added the 1 inch, but you do have to add 1/2 inch on the neckline right here. Also, you have to add seam allowances on the armhole here. Just kind of stretch that out a little bit. And you're going to add seam allowances on the side seam. You don't have to add seam allowances right at the center front right here because this is going to be cut on fold. That means you're going to fold your fabric in half and you're going to place this line right on the fold, and then you'll cut out your pattern. The next thing that we're going to do is we're basically going to trace this top half out, only because it'll be easier for us when we're working with the fabric later on. I also learned this from school, but if you could find some like fishing weights, it's pretty nice to lay it down on your fabric or just on your pattern pieces so it doesn't move while you're tracing. And when I'm tracing, I'm not tracing any other line besides the seam allowance line. That's the only line I need to know, and that's the only line I need to care about. Okay, so now you have your little fringe part for your dress. And then you'll also have your dress pattern. And that's basically it when it comes to making a pattern for this dress. Go ahead and cut everything out, and go ahead and cut your fabric out on this. Before we start sewing the main pieces, you'll want to cut out a strip of fabric about 1 inch wide and 22 inches long. It doesn't have to be 22 inches exactly, but just make sure that if you were to double it up like this, you still have enough room to kind of tie a little bow. Once you get the strip nicely prepared, you're going to want to fold it in half lengthwise, and then you're going to sew right on the edge right here. So once you're done, it's going to lay flat like this, and you're going to want to turn it inside out so it looks like this, a nice little strip. You can use a safety pin to do this. In my case, I'm going to use something called a fast turner. I wish it had a much more awesome name for this thing, but it really is called a fast turner, and you can buy this at any like sewing store. But all you have to do is you insert this into the little strip here, and you're going to clamp at the edge, and you're going to just pull it back through. Just like that. And you have your perfect little strip. So let's save this for now, and then we're going to work on the other parts of the dress. You already cut out 2 pieces, so you're going to lay them right sides together. Simply, you're just going to sew straight down onto the side seam of the dress. And you're also going to sew the side seam of the fashion fabric as well. Then take the pattern piece 1 and lay those right sides together because you have cut out 2 already as well. And you might not see it, but you do have a tiny little side seam that you might need to sew right here. So now that you have all the side seams of all the pieces sewn together, you're going to start with the lining piece first, and you're going to have the right sides facing on the outside. And then you're going to take the shorter piece and have that right side also facing on the outside. And this is kind of weird and it's a little bit confusing, but you're going to take this shorter piece and you're going to place it inside of the lining. Now what you have to do is make sure that the neckline, the arm line, and the shoulder seam are all lined up together. So if it means pinning everything down and base stitching it, go ahead and do it. Okay, so now that I have everything pinned down, and it's gonna look like this, the neckline's all pinned down, the armhole, the side seams are all lined up. Okay, so next what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the bigger piece here, and you're also going to have the right sides facing outwards. And of course, you're also going to stick this inside of the lining. So you're basically creating a sandwich. It's going to be lining fabric, shorter piece, and then longer piece. And make sure that the longer fashion piece is also lined up at the shoulder and at the armhole. This is what the whole thing looks like. Remember, like I mentioned before, it's a sandwich, so you're gonna have your lining, your outer fashion fabric, and then your little short piece in between. And if you open it up like so, just like this, not all the way open, what we're trying to focus on sewing is we are going to sew the neckline on both sides, and then we're going to sew the armhole, and we're going to go from the front all the way to the back on both sides. So once everything is sewn together, what you're going to do is you're going to stick your hand inside, and you're just going to pull it all out. As you can see, when you do it this way, the little edges right here is going to look a lot neater. And what you're going to do is you can go ahead and do a very tiny edge stitch on the neckline and even on the armhole, just to keep this laying flat. And for all the raw edges right here, you can go ahead and use like a serger or maybe even your zigzag stitch. I did it to the top, and I also did it to the bottom right here. It kind of just looks like the little edge of lettuce. The great thing about working with mesh and knit is that you don't even have to finish the raw edge. You could just leave it raw if you want to. I went ahead and I did this because I thought it looked a little bit nicer and cleaner. Okay, once you got everything top stitched, you're going to flip it inside out again. And you're going to go ahead and sew the shoulder seams. And remember that we left about an inch left over, so you're going to go in about an inch when you sew the seams up. Once you have the shoulder seam sewn, what you're going to do is, you know how you left that 1 inch kind of left over from before? Well, you're going to fold it back and you're going to pin it down, and you're going to sew just a straight stitch across. You're going to want to use a safety pin for this. There's no special trick that I have for it. From one side, then you're going to loop it through this side right here. I would tie a knot at the end of the drawstring just to give it some security. Next, you're going to want to take an elastic that measures around your waist, maybe about an inch smaller or maybe 2 inches smaller, depending on how tight you want the waist to be cinched in. To make it into a circle like this, you'll just take the ends and you butt them together really closely, and then you'll take a zigzag stitch and go back and forth until it looks like this. Depending on where you want your waist to be, some people want it a little bit higher, some people want it a little bit lower. And I'm going to slip the elastic through like so. And so when I sew this in, I'm going to go all the way around, but make sure that you stretch it out while you're sewing so that it kind of gathers when you're done. And I thought it was really easy and a simple project and something that you could make and have it be ready for spring as well. So that's the tutorial. See how easy it is. It'll probably take you half a day to make. Once you get the first one done, the second one will be a complete breeze. Remember to try out different fabrics. Try chiffon or pleated chiffon or just something very light and fun, and you could have a closet full of really, really pretty spring dresses. So good luck, have fun, and once again, I want to thank you, Bernina, for sponsoring this video. Bye!